So, first impressions, if we want to discuss the big event, obviously we got to try to tread lightly because of, where we are on YouTube and whatnot. But what were your first impressions when you heard all this? You said it kind of changed your mood for sure the last few days.
Yeah, I have been very sad, actually. I've been grieving. I know this sounds, I've seen this a lot. Like, first of all, anybody who's followed me has known that I've criticized Charlie Kirk before because I thought he was too pro-Israel. And now in hindsight, I feel like such an asshole because I'm like, I see all the positive that he did, and that we were focusing on this one thing that it seemed like he was starting to question himself, actually. And I felt this tremendous grief. I can't explain it. It's been a long time since I've been affected that way about someone's death who I didn't know or I wasn't close to. And when I saw the up close shot, it just happened at the same time. I found out that he got shot, right? But I didn't see the up close shot with the video and the blood spurting out. And then I was looking at the video where the blood spurted out, and right under it was a tweet, Charlie Kirk dead at 31. And I don't know what happened. I just burst out sobbing uncontrollably and just felt this tremendous grief to watch this man's life taken like that. I felt grief for him. Like, I feel for his family. I feel for his family. I feel for I feel for his kids, of course, but I felt for him because here he is doing all this work to save his country, help his country, and he was completely vulnerable, and they just took his life like that, and it made me so angry and so feel so much grief because they just took this man's life. I felt grief for him, for his life, So I'm still extremely upset about this. Like, really upset about it, actually.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the left has been so successful in radicalizing the people from their perspective. Of course, we don't know exactly what the motivations were because it's just come out today that apparently this is a young guy who is in a Mormon household, it appears, allegedly. And then people are thinking that he went to college and got sort of liberalized there. We don't know. It's all sort of still up in the air. The weirdest part right now, though, is that everybody is trying to frame it according to who they want to be the bad guy. And every time there's one of these big events, that always happens. Every single mass event like this, even though the last several have been TRANZ, I initially thought this was going to be some sort of racial thing because of the event with the arena girl. I assumed this was some sort of like round 2 provocation, agitation. Again, we don't know for sure, but it does look, there's a lot of different oddities, questions that are arising that people are asking that I think are fair questions. But also, I've watched these kinds of mass events for 20 years, and it's very important to be measured and not jump to conclusions because the narratives will shift and there will be new details and whatnot, and things will probably be covered up, especially with something being apparently high profile. It looks to me like there were things that make it more than a single individual, but that's my opinion. I don't know why there would be people sort of deflecting and distracting and things like that if this was just some lone gunman. But we know that, just like with JFK, the lone gunman narrative has been very popular and been a consistent pattern with these high profile events that only get questioned decades later. But nowadays, in the age of the internet, it's questioned right away. I also see parallels that not many people are talking about, except for one other person, to the way Gladio was run. If you read the Gladio literature, and I'm well aware that Gladio was a right-wing, so-called opposition, false flag operation to the Soviets and to the NKVD, but the strategy of tension in the Gladio operations included cells and networks that would set off things just like this. Mass events, shall we say. We know about the Bologna event. That was part of Gladio. and Gladio again included high-profile unalivings. So those patterns are studied and they're used and repeated for these types of events. We know that there's parallels also to the Trump event. Whatever you think of the Trump event, there seems to be certain parallels there. And it doesn't matter whether the individual himself is right or left wing. That can all be kind of tailored and created and crafted. He may have been a right winger. He may have been a social justice warrior from college. The things that are inscribed supposedly on the bullets do suggest perhaps a anti-fascist ideology, but again, it's unclear because he might have been trolling. Some of the other inscriptions, if you read this, you're gay, which again sounds like kind of just a joke and trolling.
Sounds like a tweet on a,
Right. So it's unclear exactly, but there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that don't add up. Just like a lot of these high-profile events, people are saying, "Oh, he couldn't do that." Well, if he's from a hunting and fishing family, you could conceivably do that. But that doesn't mean that he didn't still have help. And if you guys remember, we did interview right after the Trump event. We interviewed Sammy the Bull, the most famous living hitman, and he described his pattern for how he would organize these types of events. And he would say that there would always be a person who was sort of the dupe that thought they were part of the event or part of the operation that was the design patsy. They think they're on the inside. They think they're part of a team, but they're actually the one that's being set up. And we see that with people like Mr. T. McVeigh, if you know about that event and how that went down. We see that with perhaps people in the Big Nine event, particularly Saudis and other people who were perhaps thought that they were part of an operation, but ended up perhaps being the useful idiots. So a lot of times these operations use useful idiots if you study them in detail. So, but anyway, it will probably be, I don't know, but my guess is they'll either craft it to say that it was a right-wing gun nut who thought that Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough, or
not anti-Israel enough.
Exactly, really. or he's going to be, he was liberalized at college and decided he was pro-trans and he wanted to rebel, and this is some way to rebel or whatever, and that will echo well with the events that the left likes to kick off. That's why I've been talking about the Podesta plan. If you remember, he put that in the New York Times about what would happen if there was a Trump win, that the left would try to sort of kick off throughout all their NGOs and their networks and their think tanks this type of BLM violence stuff, color revolution type stuff, but not just the strategy of peaceful color revolution actually kicking off violence. And if you know about color revolution in the Ukraine, that kicked off with a sniper. The situation in Syria also kicked off with a sniper event. So a lot of times the sniper event is another key thing to try to kick off a big social traumatic response or reactionary response. That's all the time in color revolution type stuff. Most of the color revolution stuff isn't intended to be violent, but the sniper event is one of the key things that kicks it off. And it was, I think in the case of the Ukraine, it was a Ukrainian sniper that actually kicked that off. So color revolutions do include these types of violent events, and you could look at BLM and that kind of stuff as our version of a color revolution in America. It's not identical to the Orange Revolution, but it's similar.
And I think this is part of why this has pained us so much, because there's a lot of people right now online. I don't know if this happened with you, Jay, but for some reason, this has affected me deeply. I feel a heaviness around this. And I think it's because now that I look on Charlie Kirk's work, I realize like he actually was a true believer. He was trying to accomplish something good, genuinely. Maybe he was wrong on some of the things that we noticed, but he was moving the needle, and he earnestly was trying to pull these kids out of the demon ideology that had them trapped. So if you poll non-white people about whether we should have the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, they are disproportionately against these two rights because their culture does not understand abstract moral principles. And this is why they're cheering for the death of Charlie Kirk, because he dared to say that your ideology is false and call them out on their BS. And they don't have good, solid counter arguments to what he was saying. That's why they lost every debate against him. By the way, the only time I saw Charlie Kirk lose a debate was when people brought up Israel and their role in, a very magic day 24 years ago. Okay, because again, I don't think he had all the information. But these people think that if they can't out argue you because they can't, then they have a right to kill you. That's why they're posting these pictures of guess he lost the debate. That's not losing the debate, you demons. And on Judgment Day, you don't believe in God, but don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah, I think people need to understand that Charlie Kirk was having a change of opinion. Everybody has seen those videos, I think, and he even talked about that he felt like eventually someone on the left would probably try to come after him. Here's a clip of him talking about it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the core of the left, at the core of a liberal, is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. And no, we're very aware of that. I'm aware of it. We have to have full-time security. This is not a joke. This is who these people are.
It's odd that full-time security seems to have not been super effective. And I don't know what happened, but in the history of these kinds of big events, if you go back to ancient Rome, the Praetorian Guard was involved in some degree in some of those assassinations, especially Roman emperors. I'm not saying that's the case here. We don't know. But there was a individual who was a Secret Service person who was cheering this on, not directly at the event, but in some other capacity. So I think one thing nothing about this is good, but one thing that it does do is this type of event really causes a lot of people to show their true colors, where they come out and basically say what they really wanted to happen and what side they're really on and what they actually want. Do you know he just had a Orthodox priest on right before he passed away? So that's fascinating. And he was talking about Mary as the Theotokos. So I think he might have been interested in Orthodox stuff.
Okay, so this is important because I do want to talk about this. Kirk was starting to turn on our ally. This is true. Actually, let me play this video with Tucker Carlson when he went on Charlie Kirk. We can respond to this here.
He was one of the only people, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, is something that could really hurt our country. That was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't mad at anybody. He was for his country and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you don't see people. And he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot. And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective, and we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
In that way, too, he was the voice of young people. There are no young people in the country anymore supporting this war and wanting Israel to continue its bombing campaign. That's just the truth. Look at the polls. And he was in touch with them. And even where his own opinion may have differed from their opinion, he felt like he owed it to them to bring their message to the sitting president of the United States. That's what's been snuffed out.
Yeah. So,
well, as he has been, unfortunately.
Really tragic situation, right? Because, see, I'm not buying their story. And I don't understand you people who don't trust the government for anything, right? And then as soon as they come out with the story where they're like, oh, look, it was a white Christian from a hunter and farming fishing thing, and he got away. He made sure he got away, but then he went to his Discord group chat and confessed everything. And you're like, okay, case closed. Like, what's wrong with you? I had a theory that he was starting to show signs that Netanyahu did not want to risk. I don't know if he was going to turn. I don't know if he was ever going to go full. But I think there were enough signs for somebody who's paranoid to not want to risk it. That's enough. Okay? And we have issues. We can't just wrap this up neatly. What kind of lone gunman has a couple of patsies in the crowd, diversions, pretending to be the shooter, like this guy, George Zinn? Let's play this real quick. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but apparently George Zinn, there's a video, an old video of this guy. How do these people show up at... You can't just ignore coincidences and be like, I guess just a coincidence. There's no such thing, truly. So there's that. There's the plane that took off an hour after and then shut off its radar, and it was connected to a guy who made tremendous donations to Shabbat Lubavitch in Utah. These are untied, open-ended problems. And we can't just accept a simple narrative that a nice Indian, Kash Patel, has put together. He's not even smart enough to construct a good lie. And it takes him 33 hours, magical number, it takes him 33 hours to find this guy. Let me show you guys this real quick, which is very suspicious. And then you have the people behind him making signals, and one guy right to Charlie's right looks like he whips out a gun. This is often the case, right? If you guys remember with the JFK assassination, they had everybody looking at the grassy knoll, and now when we watch the video, it looks like it was the driver. But let me show you guys this video. Here's this guy running, and he's got a gun in his hand. Yeah. It looks like a gun. I don't know what it is, but that's pretty suspicious, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, probably a lot of people at that event had guns on them.
Yeah, that could be, but I don't know. And then there's also the people behind him, so I'm not... Tyler stashed the rifle at a location for Robinson's shooter to pick up. Well, whatever is clear right now is that there was more than one person involved, because supposedly they find the rifle assembled, and I think the scope is on the wrong way or something, in the woods. They find the abandoned rifle in the woods, right? And then they show us the footage of the shooter running and getting off the roof, but he doesn't seem to have the weapon on him. They're saying he disassembled it, but then what happened? He disassembled it and then reassembled it when he's running off in the woods. Guys, there's a lot of loose ends on this that you need to ask questions about, because when people lie, they always miss something that reveals the lie. So we got to pay attention. Go ahead.
Yeah, somebody said, what's the big picture? Why would they, if they do want to collapse the West, well, to integrate it into a socialist, technocratic world government? I mean, we've been covering these books for the last 10 years. You can watch in my lectures section on Tragedy and Hope and other texts what the long-term plan is.
Well, the long-term plan, is to have a one-world government. America stands in direct threat and opposition to that. I do have, somebody said something that I thought was actually... really great. There were two things. First of all, they said, if you've been crying today, felt a strange feeling or weird burden for Charlie, where your heart aches for a man you have never met, it's because you are part of the body of Christ. Maybe, but I will say that really did hit exactly what he said. My heart was aching for a man I'd never met. I felt like I lost somebody close to me, and I couldn't understand it, And then this other one was also very interesting. It said, if you're crying and grieving over the loss of Charlie Kirk and feel a bit odd or silly because you aren't understanding why you feel so devastated. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I will tell you why you are crying. Yesterday we lost an anointed man. David didn't even dare kill Saul because he was God's anointed. You are feeling the spiritual weight of a martyr. It is heavy. It is dark. We are witnessing the evil in our own home country together, and it hurts. You aren't being silly or dramatic. Your spirit is grieved. I don't disagree with anything that person said. That's how I feel. I feel like we lost something very weighty. And I feel that we are all going to be judged by this. Because me too, I had my, it's like, shut up, dude. Now that he's gone, I'm like, I wish I could have changed all of that stuff. But you can't. And it makes me realize, okay, going forward. And also, it's like, God will judge us by how we respond to this. If we just lay down and roll over and let them get away with it and let them get away with their celebration, believe you me, we will be judged as harshly as the people who did it, because that means we are morally bankrupt and cowardice, where we're going to let the assassination of this man put us in our place where we're suddenly afraid to lose our stupid little lives, where we're not even doing a tenth of the work that he did. So I think it's extremely important that we fight back within the legal parameters. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to everybody for the super chats. Appreciate it. Let's just keep, I would say, keep praying for Charlie's soul and for, God to lead us towards victory over these demons, because we can't keep living like this. This is absolutely unacceptable. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.